just looking at Tommy Robinson and what happened at St Pancras, allegedly, he gets attacked, he defends himself, and the focus that's been on that has been incredible. He's been arrested again, and he's just, he's in all sorts of trouble for defending himself, and much more focus on that than there would be on all these. By the way, all these kind of grapes that we've talked about, these assaults that we've talked about. We're talking about it. There's not being talked about on the 10 o'clock news, right? The Tommy Robinson arrest will be talked about on the 10 o'clock news. So they are still shaping the narrative, okay? Because Tommy bad, this is what he's done, look how dangerous he is. Illegal migrant, nothing. That's not bad. That's not dangerous. We're not going to talk about that. Don't talk about that. That's bad, okay? So when we start to see maybe more and more people come round to the idea that what's going on is a crime against us, our culture, our humanity within this country, then we'll start to see those tides turn. We're not there yet, and it's going to take something absolutely massive.
Yeah, just on Tommy, he says, he was defending himself. He was already going to leave the country anyway. He chose to speak to the police himself. Just things like that. It's quite funny because Jonathan Pye was talking trash about it, and Tommy called him out, and then Pye actually deleted it. Which was quite interesting.
But the point is that's synonymous, right? I don't know what happened in St Pancras.
No, I just wanted to get some of the other side out so we don't.
And you're absolutely right to do so, because that's the truth, right? That's the truth, and that's what should come out. But the point is, in the architect of the narrative, the mainstream, the Keir Starmers, the government, the blob, they found their devil, and their devil happens to be Tommy Robinson at the moment, okay? So all the time that they can spin the tale that this is the devil, this is the bad person, i.e. the one person who for the longest period has stood up and noticed, all the time that's perpetuated, we will be ignoring the other stuff. We will see at some point that story disappear to some degree, and the bigger news be about what the migrants are doing to children. And when we see that, but I dread to think what it's going to take. Because if you think about the Manchester Arena attack, if you think about Southport, if you think about any of the 10, 11 Islamist attacks across the country, Westminster Bridge, London Bridge, and endless things that you can think of, Germany, for instance, all the things that have gone on in the Scandinavian countries, they haven't turned the tide. All they've done is woken more and more people up. What on earth, given the things that we know, is it going to take? I mean, the best we can hope for is that there are more and more of these type of things, and it's the straw that breaks the camel back. Oh, God forbid. I hate that I'm saying it. But if it takes one thing, how big has that thing got to be? Because I'm really worried what that's got to be.
Well, when I say the one thing, so I'm not necessarily talking about some hideous crime that sets things off. And by the way, on Southport, I've said it before, but voters who moved from Labour to Reform were aware of his treatment of Southport, Starmer's handling of Southport, and had a negative opinion of it. So it's not true that he handled it well, as the mainstream media said. They lost votes because of it. So he didn't handle it well, but he semi got away with it, as you say. I'm not talking necessarily about a big crime. I'm talking about perhaps, the Berlin Wall. That was a point of the people had enough. It was a sort of preference cascade. Everyone spoke to each other and went, hang on, you think this is nonsense as well? That's definitely happening, or you could say has even happened. But the regime, though, will never back down. As Sam Ashworth said, they will never back down. So the only way it's going to change is if a new elite gets in, if somehow Rupert Lowe takes over. Corbyn could take over. I don't know what's going to happen in that situation. But someone, I don't know if you're sort of talking as if they're going to change tack at some point and say, we have to deal with this. I don't think this regime will ever deal with it. It's funny you talk about manufactured devils. Tommy there, again, reminded of this film Hypernormalization, because Curtis's claim, at least, is that Syria were almost certainly responsible for these certain crimes, but it was too complicated to deal with and too hard. And they said, oh, no, it's Gaddafi in Libya that's done it. It was completely made up. And it was just easier for them to create Gaddafi as this villain. Really, he didn't have much influence at all. Then later, in the WMDs, which I never bought into, and the nonsense about the Iraq War, they said they needed a victory because that was going so badly. They said, oh, Gaddafi now has given up his WMDs, and that's a great victory. He never had them anyway, but he agreed to then in wrestling it's called a heel turn, but I guess it's the opposite of a heel turn. It's turning back to babyface. He went from the arch villain to the hero. Both times it was fictitious. So Tommy is a fictitious villain because you look at his positions. What are they? Neocon, neoliberal. He believes that he's very pro-Israel and he's very pro-multiracialism, and he gets attacked constantly from the right because he's actually not very right-wing. He gets called the far-right activist still on Channel 4 and so on. He's not really far-right in any of his beliefs. Of course, he has a particular critique of Islam, but so did Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and a number of other people on the left you can name. So he's the devil, as you say. They've made up a devil. When are they going to switch to the real devil? Kind of never. That's what we see with this hyper-normalization. Kind of never. They'll never admit any of this. The question is, when does it get so bad that somehow something happens, a counter-elite does take over, and Middleton takes over? And when is that day? I don't know how it happens because it's so hard to see at the moment. Does it happen with Reform winning? But we know we basically know, sorry, some of my listeners, but basically everyone in my audience knows they're kind of fake, which we'll get onto. So they won't do it. So then what? Who knows? Do we have Corbyn or do we have something actually right wing? I don't know.